Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to his first ever webinar offered by FAST Alumni Association of North America, also known as FAANA. My name is Ahmed Malik, and on behalf of FAANA board, we would like to welcome all of you. I would like to give you a couple of minutes of background on FAANA, then we'll hand over the mic to one of our accomplished alumni who's joining here from the Silicon Valley. Just over 10 years ago, FAANA was registered as 501c, non-profit charitable organization by a few Lahore-based and Karachi-based alumni at Microsoft at Seattle, Washington. And their mission was to engage alumni and generate funds through donations and employer matching program. So they started that and they expanded it to Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad. In 2018, a new board joined, and our purpose was to expand it beyond Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. And alhamdulillah, by the end of 2018, we included Peshawar and Faisalabad as well. So our main purpose, and I'm going to share the slide here with you. Our main purpose was a scholarship fund, but we have moved into the research fund as well. And in 2019, we were able to contribute towards the 4 different exhibitions that have happened in Lahore, Islamabad, Peshawar, and Faisalabad, Chiniot. We are in talks with the Karachi campus to start up an incubation center, and we'll keep you posted about it. So over the last 5 years, we have donated, last year we donated about 4.5 million rupees, about $35,000 through generous donations from you and from various alumni. And we were able to support the students in need that couldn't finish their semesters because of unpaid dues, or they needed money to complete their education there. So we distribute these amounts to 5 campuses, different amounts to different students, so the averages are different. And we always set up these goals at the start of the year so that we could tell the schools what are the goals we are trying to accomplish and how much each campus would get. With the new board, we had a strategic meeting, and we said in 2019, we are going to enhance our engagement of alumni through webinars, like this is the first one, and we will participate in local campus exhibitions. We will enhance North American alumni membership. We will start regular campus outreach activities, working with the campuses to see what we could do as an alumni. We'll upgrade our digital channels, and we'll make these financial planning, this organization sustain itself through membership drives there. So we want to make sure our financials are always sound. So that was a short introduction to FAANA. You can join one of our digital channels and we'll keep you updated. So this thing is on our website. You can reach us at board@faana.org. You can reach us through our Facebook, WhatsApp. We have various channels established. So now to the seminar, and our guest is an accomplished alumni from Lahore batch of 1997, working in San Francisco, California. Fahad Aziz is a co-founder of healthcare startup CareMerge. It is named one of the 2018 Inc. magazine's 5,000 list of fastest growing companies in the US. And it has raised about $20 million of funding from major healthcare investors. Fahad mentors a startup at UC Berkeley and is a guest lecturer at NYU, New York University, on entrepreneurship. He's also a board member of Open, which is an organization of Pakistani Entrepreneur Network. Welcome, Fahad, and I'd like you to start this thing, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ahmed. We'll go ahead and share my screen. So first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for joining this presentation today, and for FAANA to invite me. First of all, I just want to congratulate you. You're among the very few people who took the time out of their weekend to attend this conference. As you know, that this invite was sent out to hundreds of alumni members and students, but you were the only one that decided to join this call. And this is the first step. I look back 6, 7 years back, this was my story as well. I wanted to do something different. And I would go to events and watch those YouTube channels all the time to figure out how I can do something different. And so you took the first step. So thank you for doing that. Getting started, first of all, I'm not accomplished by any means. It's still a journey and it's still learning. I share my learnings with friends and with my colleagues, and then I learn from other friends and colleagues. So it's a continuous journey of learning. Starting with my background, I did my metric and FSC from Peshawar, and I applied for undergrad at FAST Lahore. This is 1997. Despite my dad wanted me to go to Peshawar UET, I was very focused on computer science and wanted to go to FAST Lahore, and I got in. While I was in Lahore and doing my undergrad, just the second semester, I got an internship. And since I had nothing else to do in Peshawar, in Lahore, in the evenings, I had no family. So I used to go and do that internship. And it was an interesting experience because that company, that startup, we were like 6, 7 people. And within like 3 years, as I was working with them and I was studying, they went from 6 to over 300 people and then went public on NASDAQ. So for me, it was a great experience because I saw firsthand what it means to grow a company, to build products, to launch products, meet with customers, and so on at very early stage in my career. When I graduated in 2000, that company that I was working for did an acquisition in Germany, and they asked me to go there and spend time with the acquired company. So I lived in 3 months in Frankfurt. I didn't like the life of Germany. There was a lot of labor laws. Everything used to shut down after 7 p.m. No one can work after 7. So I decided to come back to Lahore, where I was enjoying my time with my friends. And then I got an opportunity and moved to New York. I lived in New York for 10 years. Now, this was a very interesting time for me because while I was doing my working in a smaller organization, I knew that I have seen one company that I worked with in the past grew from 6 people to 200, 300 people. And I felt that, if it can be done, I can probably do the same thing. So while I was in New York, I started 2 startups. And the first one was more of this is 2004, 3 or 2004. We built an e-commerce website where we started selling digital cameras. So you can imagine at that time, digital cameras was the thing to buy online. Everyone was buying and looking for best deals on cameras. And I did that startup for a year, and I partnered with this guy who had a meat shop, and he was a Jew. And behind the meat shop, he had a small room where he would stock all the cameras. So it was very interesting because I was a Muslim and he was a Jew, and he was in a neighborhood where there was all Jews in Brooklyn. And I used to go there. It smelled really bad just to enter the building, and then go all the way across all the meat stocks and back to the room. So we did that startup for a year and a half. It didn't work out. He ran out of money, and he couldn't keep up with the competition. So we shut down that startup after a year. After that, this is now 2010, and I got married. And by that time I had finished my master's as well in New York. And I got an opportunity. I met with a couple of folks in Wall Street, and they were doing trading. They were buying and selling stocks, and they have built this mechanism where the success rate was very high. And while meeting with them, we came up with this idea, said, why don't we automate this process so that we can have a black box that does all the buying and trading for you. And we will deploy this algorithm, which wasn't intelligent, it was very straightforward, and see how it works. So we signed that partnership and we started working on that project. One of the biggest mistake that I made in that relationship was that part of the partnership was that I will build the technology, and once the technology is built, then they will launch the technology and they will invest money to launch the technology. So I spent a year and a half writing the code for that system to work. And then once it was ready, we did some beta testing, and it was pretty decent. We were getting a 55% success rate, which is still good. If you buy for $100 and sell for $105, you get $5. So it was, the initial results were very good. And the time we started to launch the product, this is when we hit by a recession. If many of you remember, in 2007. Around 2007. The Wall Street was going through a very difficult time, and all these guys that I partnered with, they went out of business. Now, for me, it was a complete loss, because a year and a half of investment of my time building the product, and when we're about to launch, we cannot do that anymore because the laws have changed. Those guys are not around anymore. And I have a system that is sitting there, and I just can't do anything about it. So I was at that time, in all honesty, I was very disappointed, and felt that this whole startup thing is not my deal, and I just continue doing what I'm doing, working, and it should be fine. But a year later, I found myself in another situation. I met with this guy through my network, who was trying to build something in healthcare. He didn't have a good idea what he wants to do. Went there and I told him, I came here only for 2 days to attend this wedding. Why don't you join me at the wedding? So I just invited him over the wedding. And while everyone was dancing and having fun, he and I was creating the blueprint for the company Care Merge. And just after the wedding, a week after the wedding, he resigned. He was working with GE. And a few weeks later, I also resigned from my job. So one thing I decided at that time was that I cannot do these part-time gigs. It doesn't help. Every time I try to do these part-time gigs, it takes so much time and efforts, but it's just not the right way to do it. And then I spoke with a lot of mentors, and they said, Fahad, you have to make a choice. Either you want to do it or you don't want to do it. This cannot be a half-baked solution. And so I went back to my wife, and I told her, I said, listen, I'm doing great at my work. Now I'm the director. I travel the world. I make great 6 figures. We have 2 options now. We're thinking about buying this house in New York. Let's buy this house and pay mortgage for next 30 years. Or we give it one more shot. And let's not buy the house. Let's do it later. Let's do a startup one last time. And she said, let's do it. I'm supportive. I've seen you did it the second time, and you worked really hard. So let's give it a shot. So we decided not to get the house. Probably the best decision we made in our life. And we moved to Chicago and started working on this new project. One other thing we did was that we also decided to cut our expenses because now I don't have a salary, and in my savings I have only $10,000 to $15,000. So it was a bit of a risky proposition, but I said, you know what, it's just you and me, and we can live. So we bought a apartment in the suburbs of Chicago. We downgraded our car, a bit of a lifestyle, and started working on this project. So we had a great idea. This is 2012 now. And the idea was that everyone was signing up for Facebook. So if I look back, my dad, my mom, everyone was on Facebook at that time. It was the thing to do. So we said, why don't we build a Facebook for healthcare? And the whole idea was that, if you can share about what's happening in your life, how about you share about your how you're feeling, or if you have any medications and all that stuff. And that was the birth of a Care Merge. So we started working on this product in 2012, and 2 months into it, we realized that's a really bad idea. And no one wants to talk about their illness or their medications that they're taking. It turns out that on Facebook, people only want to talk about the good things. They want to put a good face. So we luckily realized that's a bad idea and decided to pivot and started looking at what else can we do that can make an impact. By that time, we have already quit our job, so we need to find something to do. So we looked at a number of different areas where we can make a difference or make an impact. And we ended up in an opportunity where we found that, when you get older, you need more care. And when you need more care, there are more people involved. And we saw that the system was broken. All these people who are taking care of our elderly citizens, they are not talking to each other. So whether it's the family members, their daughters, sons, therapists, doctors, all that, they want to take care of the resident, but they don't know how to talk to each other. So it was very silo communications. So we saw there's an opportunity, and we said, what, let's work on this project. And that was the sort of a birth of Care Merge, 2012. So this story, it was, so from there, while we were working on the product, we were able to raise over $200,000. And this was primarily through our network. So my family members, Asif's family members, and people that we have worked with in the past trusted us, and they took the leap of faith and gave us $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 each. So we were able to raise $200,000 and get this going, and started to make it build a product. And then something very interesting happened. There was a incubator program that just started out called the Startup Health, and it was sponsored by GE. And we applied to that program just like any other startup would apply in any other program, YC or Techstars and others. And we got into that program. However, GE came to us and said, listen, you're part of this program now officially, but we don't want you to announce this. We want you to keep it confidential, because GE wants to do a big show in New York, and that's when they're going to invite the press and they're going to make an announcement. So we said, okay, we're not going to tell anyone. We'll wait for 2 weeks. However, what we did in 2 weeks, we went to all the investors or people that were interested in giving us the money, but they were always on the fence. Those are the people that that tells you that, why don't you do this, then we will invest. You do that, they say, why don't you do this one more thing, and then we will invest. And that never stops. So anyway, we went to them and said, listen, after 2 weeks, it's going to be GE coming in, investing. You will never have an opportunity. So if you want to invest, this is the time. And in that 2 weeks, we were able to raise another $400,000. Everyone just jumped in. So we took an opportunity. We were very smart about it, and it really helped us in our cause. So so we did that, and then a year later, we did another round where we raised $2 million. And then year after that, we did another round, $4 million. And then after 2 years, we did another round with $14 million. So we were showing traction, and customers and investors were coming to us. And so now, as we speak, we have over 100,000 seniors, residents, or people that we serve through our platform. And as Ahmed mentioned, we were named as one of the fastest growing companies by Inc. 5000 last year. So that's a bit of a long story about my background. However, this when I was talking to Ahmad on how to present this presentation, he wanted to make it more of a personal story so that people can relate to it. So I will try to talk about these different topics and to try to tell you my experience. And everyone's experience is different, so don't believe that that's going to be your experience. It's going to be much different. But I think you will be able to create some. You can resonate with what I went through and what I learned through this process, and hopefully it will help you guys. So these are the topics that we will cover. We'll talk about what it means to find a champion, what is a minimal viable product, what to look for in your co-founders, what's the importance of a branding in your startup. We can do maybe a couple of sessions on fundraising, but I try to compile them into a few slides to just give you an idea what the process looks like. And then one of the questions that I get from everyone that it seems like that there's no more ideas. Everyone has built everything, and I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. Everything is out there. So that's not true. From Silicon Valley, we look at things very differently. So I want to share a bit with you on how you need to think about new ideas. So I have a few ideas that I'll share with you. So before we get started, let's see if you have any questions. Emma, are we good? Do we have any questions that I can answer now?
Okay. No, we don't have any questions. I mean, I'm collecting the questions and I will answer that towards the end of the, I'll pose those questions towards the end of your presentation.
That worked great.
Thank you.
Okay, so finding a champion. When you starting you have an idea, and you truly believe in your idea, and that's great. You need to be passionate about your idea, and you could be Mark Zuckerberg, or you could be Steve Jobs, and few other people that came up with this crazy idea and believed in it and changed the world. However, in most cases, you're not one of them. Just being honest to yourself. So you need to validate your idea, and one way to validate your idea is to find champion or champions. And the idea is that let's say you want to build a software technology that will change the HR systems in the world. You need to find future people who believe in the idea. They don't want to see your product. They will not see your product at this time, but they believe in what you're trying to do, the change that you're trying to bring in, and they sign up for it. And that the reason why it's so important is because those are the people that will help you build the product, right? But more importantly, those are the people that will also tell you that what you're doing is right. Right? There is a need for it. There is a space for it, and if you build it, people will buy it. Right? If you build in a vacuum and believe that after 8 months what you have built you will be able to sell it, that's not going to happen. So you need to find people that believe in your idea and wants to invest and help you build that product. And when we were starting out with CareMerge, we went to a number of these senior retirement houses, and people over there would say, "Yeah, great idea, but we're too busy. There's so much going on." And at that time, we could have thought that this is a great idea, but no one wants it, and should have shut down the whole project. But then, while talking to so many people, we ended up finding someone who was very young, 30, maybe 35 or 33, and he was managing the full retirement house. He when we talked to him, he said, "You know what, guys, this is exactly what I need. I have so many staff members, and they don't talk to each other. I have so much challenges. I believe in your idea. And what I can do for you? I'll give you access to my retirement house. And you can come and talk to my nurses and talk to the seniors and residents and validate the idea and build a product." And for us, that was it. We knew that now there is a need, and we are about to meet that need. So I and my colleague had spent 3 months in that retirement house, the one that you're looking at right now. And while we were there, we would just shadow the nurses, residents. We would ask all these questions. We would say, we'll do the 5 why trick. We'll say, why are you upset? what's causing the reason, why you think that's the reason, why you think that cannot change, and try to dig the answers on what's the problem, what's the root cause of the problem. So by spending that time there and building the product, that retirement community became the first customer and was the first paid customer for us. So this was more of a B2B game, but even if you look at the B2C, you need to find focus groups. You can build it, if you're building a technology for teenagers, you need to find 20, 30 teenagers and use them as your punching bag for getting the requirements, getting the feedback, and building the product. So it becomes really key, when you're starting working on the product, it's very early, you have a great idea, you need to get people that believes in the idea. And the other way to think about it is that if you cannot convince anyone today to use your product, what are the chances that you will convince them tomorrow when the product is ready, right? You will face the same problem 6 months later when the product is ready. Now you have already invested in it, and it's too late to go back or pivot. So that's why finding a champion is key as you're starting out to build your product. The next key lesson, and you probably, if you read any of these startups book or lean startup books, they talk about a minimal viable product. And I come from 20 years back when we were taught to write a storybook or a novel of requirements and functional requirements, and it ends up being like 30, 40 pages of requirements. And the whole process of putting the requirements itself would take us weeks. And once you have the requirements, good luck giving it to the developers, because they will never read the whole thing and they will build something that's completely out of place or not required. So with the changes in the way things are working now with waterfall versus agile, now you can design products and validate it before you build the next feature and next feature and next feature. So one of the advice that I give to my startups is that when you are building a minimal viable product, try not to invest any in that development. And what I mean by that, you always have limited funds, and you will need more funds later. So try to save that funds for now. What you can do with minimal viable product is that create these designs, these mock-ups. And since many of you are software engineers, you can actually write these HTML code and present that it's working. It may not be working. There's nothing in the back end, but for the end user, it is working. They can see, they can click on the button and do all that stuff. So you can see this is exactly what we did. We built it using a mock-up tool and went to the customer and said, this is how it's going to work. And they gave us some feedback. Then a few weeks later, I put together this HTML piece, which looks ugly, but it works. And I gave it to them and say, this is how it's going to actually look like and work. And they say, this is great, but I don't want these buttons here. I don't want to change this stuff. And then, next step was to get a designer and spend some money to build the product. So we hired a young kid out of college as an intern, and he took the same screen and built a better design for us. And then, today it's much better. So we don't make the mistake that you build the last screen in the first time. Your system will not be perfect when you release it in the first few weeks. The goal is to get it out as soon as possible into the hands of the users who will be using it. And the sooner you can do that, the better it is, because you'll get the feedback. If you want to make changes, it's much easier to make change in screen number 2 than it is to make in screen number 4. So you want to be in a situation where you have an option that you can make those changes. And and you may also come in a situation that you build this first 2 screens and you just realize that this is not what the market is looking for. Market is looking for, they don't want a chat system, they want something else. So if you have to pivot at this time, trust me, you will not feel bad or you will not feel sorry for yourself because you haven't invested a lot of money into this. You can easily pivot and find another opportunity and go into that. However, if you have invested money in design and product development, now you will not pivot, and an opportunity will come to you. You will look at it and say, this is a great product, but I cannot do that. because I have already this solution. I will try to sell what I have. And this is again in a bad situation to be, that you know there's a bigger opportunity over there, but the only reason you're not doing that because you already built a product that no one wants to use. There is also a term that we use here in the Valley. It's called ugly duckling phenomena. What it really means is that you have a product and you believe that your product is great, but in really it's not. Now in your heart you know that it's not, but you pretend it's the great. So it's ugly, but you don't look at it and you don't want to tell people it's ugly, but it is ugly. So this is a situation that you want to avoid. So that's a key, minimal viable product, really important for building your startup. Let me do a time check. Okay, let's move on to the team and the co-founders. This is where the company can succeed or fail. And the reason why it's so important is because in the first 2-3 years of your development, every single person in your team matters. They are representing you, they are building your product and making decisions every minute. And if they make the wrong decisions, it's gonna impact your business. You're in a meeting with 4 people that are in the team, and they come up with crazy ideas. No, not all the ideas can be crazy, that's fine, but they come up with stupid ideas, and you have to listen, or sometimes you have to act on it, and that's a waste of time. So you have to be very careful on how you find your team members. And with the co-founder, it's extremely critical that the person and you need to be on the same page. And your co-founder is not in this business to make some short-term money. He and you need to believe in the vision, because there will be very difficult points in the startup. And if he is in for short term, that relationship will fall apart very soon. So you need someone who believes in the mission and is there to be there for you when the time gets tough. And then you're spending so much time with the co-founder. You have to travel with him or her, and it's days and nights, and it's sometimes more than you're spending your time with your family and with your spouses. You need to have a fun relationship. You need to have, you can enjoy time together because it's just more than work. If you see friction in the initial days of startup, imagine living with that person for next 10 years. It's not going to happen. So you need to stand up to those things and make a decision. Now, many of our friends and startups I speak with, they try to bring in their family members, their cousins, their wife, their spouses, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but keep in mind, it's not an easy path. You don't want to fight 2 battles. Number one, that you don't agree with the co-founder, so that's one battle, and number 2, that he is your wife's brother. So you just cannot fight 2 battles. So you're better off fighting 1 battle. So find someone who you have less baggage to deal with. The other key thing is that, how do you find a good person? How do you know that that person is going to work? And, the best way to do that is that work with that person in some temporary engagement. And the way it can do is that you can say, hey, listen, let's work on that together for 2 months. And if this works out, then we can figure out a more formal relationship. And we have seen in our business that this was the best way to figure out who's going to be a good team member and who's not. We brought in people who day one told us they are the best. They'll make it a difference. They have done that 3 times. They're managing $100 million in sales and all that crap. And the day they come in, they have no idea what to do. And by the time we figure out, we lost 6, 8, 12 months, which is a long time in a startup. We have other cases where we engage someone to help us with the project as a mentor, as an advisor. And while working with that person, we build that relationship. And we said, what, this person really understands what we're doing, and he appreciates, and he or she is complimentary. And then we would go and offer her or him a full-time position or give him or her a title. And that works out really well. So my advice has always been to startups that, try to figure out a way where you can try something out with that person before you involve in a more formal engagement. The other key thing with the team is that, as a leader, when you're starting a company and when you're running a company, it's not always fun. There are a lot of disappointments down the road. Everything starts with problems. But as a leader, you have to put a positive face, and you have to keep the team excited and positive. And it's not easy. When you're down, when you go to an investor or a customer and they say, we're canceling the contract, we don't want to work with you. And then you come back to the office, you just cannot share that news with everyone in the team, because they don't look at the bigger picture. They look at you, what you are doing. So as a leader, it puts a lot of pressure on you that, no matter how bad the situation is, how bad the business is, you have to put a positive spin. And when you do that, that's the energy you get back from them. You'll see that people coming back and say, I have an idea. Why don't let's market there. Why don't we do this and that? And that helps, because it may help you grow your business. You don't want to be in a situation where they're so disappointed and so sad that they don't come up with anything positive, and you go on a downward spiral. So as a leader, a lot of pressure on you to keep the motivation high, tell the good story, and believe in what you're doing, and let not these little hurdles or these little disappointments stop you from growing your business. So brand marketing is the best thing that you can do in your startups and to yourself. And I'll tell you a story about this young girl. She came to Silicon Valley 3 years back from Karachi, and she has a startup in healthcare. And I had a time to spend 30 minutes with her. And I told her that, listen, you're doing a great job, but you're not doing a good job in marketing. No one knows what you're doing. So these are 3-4 things I want you to do. And I know she was taking notes, and she went back to Karachi. And then, I started seeing her doing all those things that I told her. And everything changed. Now she's one of the biggest healthcare startup. We won so many awards in US, in Europe. And the marketing is what differs you from other startups. And the whole idea is that you have to shout. Imagine yourself in a room of 500 people, and you are in there, and there's too much noise. The only way you're going to stand up is you're going to shout, and you're going to tell the people what you are doing. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to wait for $5 million funding to close to make that announcement. It could be little things. You need to talk about little things that's happening in your business and tell people. So this team member has joined, make an announcement. You got 2 new customers, make an announcement. Your product, this feature is launched, make an announcement. But when you do that, you create the buzz in the market. And everyone gets the impression that this company is buzzing. They're going to be the next big thing. Now, under the hood, it may not be the case, but that's okay. Okay, I don't want you to lie, but I'm just saying you need to broadcast what you're doing, and trust me, that's going to make a big difference. So in my history, my background isn't computer science, but I have spent half of my time in marketing, and that's what I was very good at. And I started writing about what we are doing. I would do blog posts, and in today's world, you would say, there are zillions of blog posts. Why would anyone go to our website and read those blog posts? But they do. What they do is that these blog posts establish you as a subject matter expert in what you're doing. So I did a blog post. It's an interesting story. I did that on my website, and I got a reach out from Inc. magazine, and they said, we read your blog post and we really liked it. Do you mind if we publish it on our print magazine? I'm like, okay, why should I mind? Let's just do it. So they published it on their Inc. magazine, and then a few weeks later, I got a call from Forbes. They said, we saw your on Inc. and really liked it. We want you to start writing for Forbes magazine. So it wasn't intentional. I wasn't reaching out to any of those guys, but the fact that I built myself as a subject matter expert in what I'm doing, it did open up doors for me. So you need to establish that, and the way you can do it is write. If you cannot write, speak. If you cannot speak, attend events and mentor people, tell them what you're doing, and present yourself as the expert. And with today's technologies, there is no demographical limitations. When you make those announcements, it goes out to the world. Anyone from any part of the world will contact you and say, you know what you're doing does make sense, and I want to help. I want to be part of it, or I want to join you. Okay, so really, really important to market yourself. So again, this is a big topic, fundraising, and I know many of you have deep interest in how it's done. I have done, as I mentioned before, over 3 to 4 times the fundraising. I got a little bit of a experience on how it's done, what's the art behind it. But again, every time it's different. So don't get me wrong. If you have to do it, your circumstances will be very different. But here are 7 key things that I learned during this process. So I'm going to quickly go over them. And if you want to do a more in-depth deep dive into fundraising, I can probably do a separate workshop. So number 1 is that leverage your connections. This is the best thing you can do to raise money. You need to figure out every single person that you know, and how or if he can help you. Could be your neighbors, could be your family friends, could be your past colleagues, could be your past employees, and could be your friends on LinkedIn who you never met, but they just send you invites. So you need to reach out to them and figure out, if they can open doors for you. And, when we were doing our second round of funding with $2 million, by then we have talked to over 60 people. And many of them were people from Pakistan also. And we were extremely disappointed because they would make us run around. And in the middle of the night, they would call us to do a presentation to this guy in Oman. And they have a CTO sitting in UK that we have to present. And after those 7 presentations, they would say, well, we're still not sure. We'll think about it. So anyway, I had a connection in Dubai who reached out to me and said, we love what you're doing. I see you on the LinkedIn, and let me help you raise the money. And I said, okay. And I went to my team. I said, I know him for 15 years. I think he can do it. And my team was there. Oh, we have gone through this path so many times. That never works. So let's give it a try. And we did. And within like 4 weeks, we got $2 million in our account. So the whole idea is that, your connections, the people that have known you, have worked with you, will vouch for you and will get you what you need. They will open doors for you. So don't underestimate the power of your network and your connections. So as an investor, when they look at the slides, the one thing that stands out to them, the one thing that they cannot ignore is the traction. And the traction could be how many customers have you gained, how many users, how many logins, what's the churn rate, how quickly are you getting the customers, what's your revenue, how quickly you're increasing the revenue. Your traction could be different depending on your business. But if your traction is showing a growth like this, investor would be an idiot to say no to it. That traction will tell him the story that, if he comes to this point and give you the money, that will go further up. Okay, so when you are come up with an idea of building a product, the first thing you need to think about is that how are you going to market that idea? Let's consider yourself in a position that your product is ready. You build a product, it's ready for in your hands. What are you going to do today to get customers, right? And if you think about it, when you have an idea, then you will make the product differently. You will build it. It may have network effect. You will build it so that the payment models is built in it, whatever. So when you're building a product, think about traction. This is not an afterthought that you will have a product and then people will buy it and then I will sell it. No, think about it first, that how you're going to sell it, how you're going to market. And, one of the things we did was, and I keep telling, you're not going to be able to raise money if you present a PowerPoint slide that sucks. No one wants to invest in a technology or in a product that doesn't look good. It's just human nature. You want to be part of an organization or associated, which is cool. which is buzzing, which is excitement. So, if you have to pay someone to design your PowerPoint, hire someone in Fiverr or somewhere, but do that investment. I think it will pay off. Now, when you are presenting, this is very interesting, when you're presenting to investors, could be your family members, could be a very sophisticated venture capitalist. One of the things they're looking at is your body language. You are there with your co-founder. And last thing you want to do is that you want to have some sort of disagreement. You're saying something, your co-founder is saying something else. You're nudging, and your co-founder is not agreeing and showing some sort of signs. And that's it. The investor would know that, the moment these guys will get the money, they're going to go separate ways and this is going to fall apart. So, when you go to these investors and present, you need to show that there's a strength, this team will work, will take your money and will build a business. We're not going to fall apart once we get your money. The other mistake that we did again and again was that through our connections, we would get into the big VCs or big venture capitalists. And for instance, this was like a first few weeks of fundraising, and we went into Sequoia Capital, we went to Founders Fund, Kleiner Perkins. So these are the top venture capitalists in the Valley, those who have funded Google, Facebook, and Apple. And that was the worst thing you can do, because if you go to these investors, they're going to ask questions that you're not prepared to answer, and that's it. You're never going to get a second chance. The best way to go about it is that, you need to practice. You need to go to investors that you're not too sure that you're going to invest with, but do your presentations, because they will ask a lot of questions, and those questions will help you prepare for the big presentations. Okay. So at the end, after doing like 20, 30 presentations, you probably will have answer to all the questions. It's not going to be a new question here onwards. But to get those 10, 20 questions, you need to do a lot of pitches. And then the other part is that, you need to create the urgency for your fundraising. If you go to an investor and say, I'm raising $1 million and you can invest, and you can invest in whatever time frame, that's not going to work. You have to tell them that you're going to close the round on May 30th. If he wants to come in, he has to come in before May 30th. Because it's just like a human being, just like any consumer, when we go to these websites and they say, there's a sale, but the sale is going to end tomorrow night at 12. And now you have an urgency and you make a decision, and sometimes you make the wrong decision, and that's what you want the investors to do as well. You want them to push them to make a decision. It may or may not be the best decision of their investment, but who cares, right? So you create the urgency and give them a deadline and rally everyone to that deadline. Is also important for you, because you don't want to be doing the fundraising for 12 months. You want to finish it and start building the business. So really important that you set the date. Now you need to balance it. You don't want to set a date of, say, April 15th. That's never going to happen. So don't set yourself for failure. Make a very informed decision what that date should be, which is more practical. And the last one is that, these investors are sharks. So by no means they are your friends. This is not a social business for them. This is for profit. They give you money to make money, and they will put the terms in there, and they will propose terms that will upset you. But that's fine. It's all about negotiation. In Pakistan, I have seen terms coming in like, I'll take 51% of the company, and my startup would come back to me and say, I don't want to work with this guy or with this company. They're asking for 51%. That kills the purpose. And I say, that's fine. They will do that. You have to go back and to prove to them why this is not going to work and why you want to give them much less than 51%. So investors are sharks. You have to negotiate your terms out of it. When we did our second round of investment, we got a term sheet. And I look at the term sheet and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a term sheet or this is an acquisition? There was nothing in that term sheet that would support the founders or the company. They were actually acquiring the company, and we were probably going to start working for them. But that was the beginning of the negotiation, and few more negotiations, and we finally came to a terms where we both agreed. So now let's talk about, we have 10 minutes left. So I wanted to touch on this topic. People ask me, what's the next big idea? What can I work on? Everything is there. People have figured out zillion things to do. I don't know what I can do. But, in the Silicon Valley, we look at it differently. We say that the tomorrow is very different than today. It's what you see today is not going to be tomorrow. There are forces that are changing things, and you need to understand what those forces are to be able to predict the future. And the best way to look at it is if you believe in maths, if you believe in statistics, then you should believe that the future is exponential. And what I mean by future is exponential is mean that, if I ask you to walk for 30 linear steps, walk in one direction, you can tell me exactly where you'll get to in those 30 steps, what direction, and how long it's going to take you. There's no question about it. I can start walking for 30 steps here, and I can tell you. But what if I ask you to start walk 30 exponential steps? 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2, 4, 4 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 8, 16. Do you know how far you can go if you do 30 exponential steps? You're probably going to go around the world in 25 times. That's how far you will go with those exponential steps. And when you look at the technology, that's how the technology works. It's very exponential. And if you have seen Moore's law that was introduced in 40s and 50s, it says the number of transistors on a circuit will double every 2 years. And that has proven correct. Up until recently, you can see that the processor is doubling in speed and performance, and so does everything else. So that's how far fast the technology is moving, and there's no denial to it. But if you look at the phase of how it happens, it's like when the new thing comes, it brings a lot of disappointment. And there are a lot of examples, when these smartphones came out before iPhone, they were Windows phone, they were bulky, big, very difficult to connect to internet. And, people bought them with excitement, but there was a disappointment phase. Everyone was disappointed that it's not working, it's cool, but doesn't do anything except for my notes. And then came the point when Steve Jobs went on stage and presented the iPhone, and that was the iPhone moment. And then it created amazement and chaos. There was no stopping after that. And this is true for most of the technologies. Even if you look at Google Glass, it came a lot of excitement, but then we are going through a disappointment phase. And no one is using it. I don't see anyone wearing Google Glass anymore. However, just last year, China took those Google Glass type of technology and gave it to their police. And what it does is that it does a facial recognition, and they look at suspects and see, if this matches the database of 100,000 people that they're looking for. And in just like a few months, they were able to identify 30 people of interest. So there is a time that may come that this whole Google Glass will reach its iPhone moment, and it's gonna fall apart. So it's very difficult for people to see when they're in the disappointment phase. They don't realize that that's okay. The technology is there. It's just that it doesn't get the best need. So as an inventor, you need to figure out what those technologies are that are going through disappointment phase and how you can help them get to the iPhone moment. And then there are many people who just lives on the waves and say, he built Uber, guy built Kareem, I will build a motorcycle ride service, and he will build a rickshaw, and then they went to doom because they don't innovate, and they just continue doing what they think the market needs. And the technology, the way we look at it is that, there's innovation and there's disruption, and everyone say, I have a disruptive technology. My technology is going to disrupt this industry. But what disruption really means? So innovation is doing the same things better. You do something, I gave an example of that. The other example I would give is a detergent powder. So let's say there's a detergent powder that you use to wash your clothes, and they keep getting better and better. So now it's a whitewash, now it's a white bleach, now it's a white bleach and refreshener, crazy things. And then there's something called doing new things. So someone would come and say, I don't want powder, I'll give you gel packs. So that's great, it does the same thing, but it's a new thing. People, I would buy those. I'm tired of taking the powder and just get the gels. But the disruption is different. Disruption means that you do something new that makes the old things obsolete. And the example would be that you come up with a shirt that doesn't need to be washed. It's always clean. And that would disrupt the market. No one will be buying those washing powder. Another good example is Gillette. So with Gillette, every year when you go to Gillette, they just add new blades to it. It keeps on adding blades. I think the new Gillette has like 8 blades. And then they came up with new things, which was they had some sort of battery in it, and it would move, and people would buy that. But the disruption came with a company called Dollar Shave Club, and they said, you know what? I don't want 8 blades. That's not my problem. What I want is 1 blade, which works, but I want a fresh one. I want a new one every month. And then they disrupted the market, and Gillette had no choice than to acquire them. So most of the people, when you look at it, you need to think about, are you meeting the customer needs, or you are just a Gillette incumbent that just keep adding on their feature and going nowhere. So, and then the Dollar Shave Club would come in as a new entrant who understands the customer needs. They're not going to the market. They look at the customers and they disrupt the market. So to end my slides, I just want to share this with you that, there couldn't be any better time than today. With the 5G coming in, it's going to bring a lot of opportunities. The young kids that are coming out of colleges, and many of you are part of this presentation, know that they're going to build something different. They're not going to build a food delivery system. They're not going to build another riding sharing app. They're going to build something that's much higher, bigger than that, because the technology is there, AI is there, 5G is there. Just recently, Google announced a platform where you can play games on the browser, and everyone is very skeptical about it. But they're not, because they know the 5G is coming. 5G has 10 times more power and speed than the regular internet, and that's why these gaming will work. So they are prepared for what's coming in 2 years from now. So you sitting in any part of the world cannot have that excuse that I cannot build the technology. You can, because you have the same power and same resources that anyone else has in the Silicon Valley. So that's my little bit story. I hope it was helpful. I know we're running out of time, but do you mind, Ahmad, if I just close on the open?
No, I don't mind. I hope that this would continue on. I know we are over time, but please talk about open. And I have some questions too that people have been asking. So.
Okay, so we'll do it quick on open, and then we'll come to the questions. So, we talked about network and how important it is for any startup to grow. You guys should be glad to know that there is a network for Pakistani professionals called Open. It has its chapters in the Valley, in Canada, in Pakistan, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, very active chapters. And what they do is that they bring a lot of successful Pakistani entrepreneurs and help young startups, young mentors. When I launched my product, I went to them. They gave me the space and the mentorship that I needed. So I urge all of you to join this organization if you haven't. There is a big conference coming up on April 20th. Over 800 people attend it every year. This is some of the speakers. This is all of these speakers on this slide are Pakistanis, and extremely, extremely successful. So there's no shortage of successful Pakistani entrepreneurs. If you know Idris, he's the individual who built VPN. So the VPN that we use every day is built by Idris. Mudassir Sheikha is going to be a keynote speaker on April 20th. Many of you already know him. Many of these folks have already sold their companies 2, 3, 4 times now in hundreds of millions of dollars. So Mudassir may be popular in Pakistan, but he's not the only one. We have several others who have done that before. And you can be one of them. So I highly urge you guys to attend this conference. If you cannot, just join the chapter in your city. I think you're going to benefit from this network. So with that, I'm going to wrap up with a few questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Fahad. I think this was a very good session. You talked about how to find champions. You talked about How do you develop an MVP? Don't focus on the back end too much. Just focus on a little bit on front end, see if the product would be working. Then you talked about the team and team dynamics. You talked about leadership, and that was very interesting, especially when you touched upon the EQ, emotional quotient portion of it, and how to keep yourself energized during these disappointments. We also talked about marketing and branding, how to market yourself, market the company, and a big topic of fundraisers, and then innovation and disruptions. I think each one of these topics could be a workshop of its own, but this is good. I was very happy to hear about this. And some of these questions that have been coming up are related to some of the things that you have covered, but I'll just read up on a few questions. How do you approach VCs if you have no connections or context to them? Do you start by cold calling? What's the first step?
Right. So great question. I think cold calling will never work, because if you're a VC, you're getting hundreds and thousands of emails and calls. The best way to work is through your network. You have to join these meetups. You have to join organizations like Open, TIE, and there's several others that have deep networks into VCs, and they're going to open doors for you. The other way to do is that you have to do a lot of presentations. You have to go to these smaller events, bigger events, demo days, and try to get any place where they can give you a time on stage. Because once you're on stage and you present, you never know who's in the audience. He could be a guy who knows the biggest VC in your area, and he will open the door for you. So it's all about networking and getting yourself out.
Okay, good. Then the other question is related to the partnerships or with the co-founders or with a team. So I mean, I'll merge a couple of questions together. There was a person looking for a tech developer on his startup idea and wants to see if he should offer a part of the stake in the company for him. Or the second question were, what are some of the do's and don'ts while setting up financial terms with the co-founder? Things like that.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. You have to give them equity of your company. Otherwise, they're not equally vested. Right. If they're working only for the compensation, then this relationship is going to fall apart very soon. However, what you can do is that you can give them how much investment you want, equity you want to give him, but give him on vesting terms. So if he continues to work for 2 years, then he earns everything. So every month he earns something, and up until 2 years he will get everything. So this way he will be vested. He will make sure he continues to work and deliver. And if he delivers, then he gets the full equity. And you don't have to worry about giving him equity and only to find out that he's going to run away with it. So that's the one question. The other one was how to set up the financial terms with the founders.
Yes.
Again, if you find people who believe in the vision and believe in what you're trying to do, then they'll come back to you and say, listen, all I need is $4,000 or $3,000 to pay my rents and my expenses. So now that you have a good discussion, you can have a good discussion and say, okay, if this is all you need, let's work around and see what we can do for you. In some cases, you can say, I can only give you this much, and rest I can give you an equity that would convert. So maybe that's the play.
Okay. The question is, healthcare is one of the toughest verticals to break into because change, both technology and non-technical, is not easily accepted by the stakeholders. How do you overcome the challenge into finding the champion who believe your idea? You talked about finding a champion. So how did you do that?
Right. So again, talk to as many people as you can. Talk to as many doctors or hospitals. Again, if you cannot find champions, you have a bigger problem. Your product is not solving a real problem for them. If it is, they'll come to you. They'll pay for it. Yes, healthcare is difficult, but at the same time, there's a huge opportunity now because not everyone can get into healthcare because it's difficult to get in. So while there are roadblocks, there's equal opportunity.
Okay, cool. For entrepreneurs, what do you advise about when to stop working on any idea? At what step should they stop and just say, okay, this is enough?
Okay, so that's a very difficult question. To be able to know what will should we continue working on it, whether it will going to work out, whether there's a need, and so on. I think the best thing you can do is that set some parameters for yourself and say, you know what, if I am able to cross these parameters or I am able to achieve these milestones, then it means there's a need and I need to continue working on it. If you fail to do that and you cannot pass your parameters, then you can make a shift and say, you know, it's not going to work. I don't think I can pass those. You know, this is where a visionary entrepreneur differs from a non-visionary entrepreneur, because the people who have a vision, who wants to change the world, they see beyond what their customers are seeing, and they take those bets. No matter how much people tell them no, they know that people need them, because people usually don't know what they want. You have to dig into it to understand what they want. So this is where, and I'm not one of those, so I wouldn't call myself by any means any visionary. I continue to struggle to figure out, you know, what we should build, what we should not build, whether it's going to be used or not. So it's a tough one.
Okay. We just have time for a couple of questions, and I think towards the end of it, we'll share your contact information too. They could probably contact you on LinkedIn as well. The question is, I think these are some fresh graduates. One of the persons saying, I'm about to graduate with CS degree this semester. What should I be doing? And the other is more about, what is your take on the scope of personalized medicine? Because I'm thinking about doing final year project on it.
Not
a vague question, but
right. Not an expert on that, but obviously there's a huge need with personalized medicine, with the diseases, the way they are becoming so complicated and differ from person to person. There's a lot of work being done on personalized medicine. I think, you know, my suggestion to you would be, if you have an idea, you know, just do your research. Talk to as many people as you can. Reach out to them without being shy. You can reach out to the PhDs and just ask a question, and you'll be surprised that they will answer.
Okay. Last question. How did CareMerge land their first lead or pilot? I think you answered that early on, but I think it's good to go.
Yeah, it's just by meeting people and telling them what we want to do. Because there is also a concept that entrepreneurs don't want to share their idea. They think that, you know, if I share the idea, someone will copy it. And don't do that. You know, unless you share your idea, you're not going to refine the idea, number one. And number two is that you're not going to find the right people to invest, partner, co-founder, customer. So talk about it. Even if someone else copies your idea, it's all about the execution, how they build the idea and do all this stuff. So don't worry about that. So same thing we did. You know, we would tell our story, what we're trying to do, at least like 30, 40 times a day. I remember me and my co-founder would pick up the phone and telling the same story repeatedly. Right? So one day I told him, why don't we just record this and just play this recording every time? So the more people we tell, they open doors for you. They say, you know, I know this guy who has a retirement community in this place. Why don't you go and see him? He may be able to help you. And that was it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for this very informative session. I am going to request everybody to fill a survey, and I'm going to share the link of this survey, and you'll see it right now on your screen. So it is bit.ly/FAANA survey 0001. And this would be great to hear your feedback. It would help us find new ideas. It would help us get better with time, as this is the first webinar that we conducted here. So thank you very much, Fahad, for your time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.